Hello again and welcome to another Mordy and Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's episode, we shall be taking a look at artillery. Now, with the recent balanced data slate and the Pariah Nexus, guard artillery, well, it's taken a bit of a beating, and the community in general is feeling somewhat unenthused, shall we say, about our big guns. And so what I want to do in this video is take you through what is now my go-to artillery configuration for my army lists. And so without further ado, let's main gun range, shatter their skies, and bombard our way right into today's episode.
Attention guardsmen, the Commissariat has detected you have not yet liked this video. Do so immediately or else you will face the Emperor's wrath. And anyone who has not yet subscribed to the channel will be transferred to the penal battalions. That is all. Move out!
So the first thing that I want to cover is the role of artillery in guard army lists right now. Previously, artillery had been powerful enough and had been able to gain access to enough different buffs that it could be the primary damage dealer of your army. In fact, some of the most successful guard lists in 10th edition heavily leaned on artillery that could be boosted up to hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s with all sorts of things like lethal hits and other bonuses as well. But now with the changes to the way indirect fire works and the changes to how the guard-born soldiers detachment works, artillery can't really do that anymore. No matter how much you boost up, a 1 to 3 always misses when you are using an indirect fire weapon. And you also no longer get lethal hits for standing still. You need to be within 18 inches of and visible to the enemy unit. This has severely limited the reliability of artillery and reduced the amount of damage that it can do. So what is the new role? Do we just leave it on the shelf, or does it still have a place in our army lists? Well, the good news is for all of you big bombardment bastards, artillery is still very, very important in a guard army. It's just that now your artillery is restricted to supporting fire and harassing fire. Supporting fire is where you use your artillery to finish off an enemy unit. Perhaps there is a vehicle or a squad of elite infantry that you've almost destroyed. You've gone down for the last few wounds, but they're still going, and you can't afford to let them bring their big guns to bear when it comes to their turn. So you use your artillery, you save your artillery until last. It's the last thing you do in your shooting phase, and then you bring it down to finish off those wounded enemy units. Harassing fire is where you use your artillery to either debuff the enemy or go after some small isolated units. So a good example of this is if you have a unit of Terminators that deep strike down, maybe they come in with rapid ingress and they want to get a nice easy charge on you in their next turn. What you do is you would use something like a Basilisk or an Earthshaker carriage, and you would shoot them and you'd hit them and you'd use that Earthshaker to slow them down, harassing your opponent and maybe throwing a spanner in their plans. Or perhaps your opponent has got a small squad hiding out of line of sight, trying to hold onto the objective or complete some kind of action. And your direct firepower, like your Leman Russes, can't quite reach them, but your artillery absolutely can. And this small unit is fragile enough that a couple of turns of bombardment, or maybe just one lucky shooting phase, and you'll be able to remove them. Artillery is really good for taking enemies off home objectives, which they might have tried to hold with just like 5 Space Marine intercepts, for example. And if you destroy that unit, it puts your opponent into a really difficult position, because either they put another small cheap unit on it to try and hold it, which you'll then probably take off them again, or they have to direct something big and chunky back to holding the home objective, which means they've got less units pushing forward and fighting for the mid board. That is another aspect of harassing fire, messing with your opponent's units or messing with your opponent's plans. So now that we have covered what artillery used to do and how it has now changed and evolved with this latest balanced data slate, the big question is, what artillery should you be putting in your lists? For myself, I am looking at either going with a pair of basilisks or for 2 field ordnance batteries supported by Ursula Creed. Looking at that first option, putting a pair of Basilisks into your list is incredibly simple, incredibly straightforward, and it ticks off all of the boxes. You're getting 2 relatively cheap artillery pieces coming in at 145 points each, and they need no support in any way, shape, or form. There's no need to give them any kind of orders because Basilisks hit on a 4 natively. They've got a ballistic skill of 4+, they get -1 to hit for firing indirectly, but they get +1 to hit because of heavy. Considering a 1 to 3 always misses, there's no point in putting something like take aim on this unit. They also have a very reliable number of shots each turn, thanks to the fact that they have D6 plus 3 shots. Bear in mind that the strength and the AP and the damage of the Basilisk is more than enough to go after some of those 5-man Space Marine squads, or to help finish off a wounded vehicle monster that's on 1 or 2 wounds left over. Sure, we're not going to have those lethal hits anymore, but with that strength of 8, it means any target in the game, even if it is a big vehicle monster, is going to be wounded on a 5 at worst. And you should be able to pick a couple of those up between the 2 Basilisks that are firing. But most importantly, the Basilisk's ability is still really strong. The number one reason why you want to put one of these things in your list is for its Earthshaker shells, which can reduce the movement and the advance and the charge of any enemy unit that are hit by a Basilisk by 2. This can really slow down assault armies. It can buy you valuable time. It can really mess with your opponent's plans if they can't quite get onto that objective, if they can't quite make that charge. It's a very, very viable ability that I have personally used even before this update to genuinely win games. On the other hand, we have the field ordnance batteries. Now, these have gone down in points and they're only 110 each. That is pretty reasonable. Each field ordnance battery you're going to want to equip with the bombast field guns. There are some people that are arguing about maybe taking direct fire weapons. I still think they're a little fragile, and we're not going to cover that today because, well, the topic of this video is artillery, and las cannons and managed rocket launchers are direct fire weapons only. But going back to the bombast field gun, you've got 2 D6 shots from each field ordnance battery, so for a total of 4 D6. That gives you, even though it can be potentially very swingy, it should give you enough insurance and enough dice being rolled to ensure that you get a relatively decent number of shots. Your strength is 7, which, unless you are targeting the toughest thing in the game, a stomper like the Basilisk, you're going to be wounding things on 5s, and you've also got that damage too. Where I think the field ordnance battery has an advantage over the Basilisk is the fact that if you give it an order, not only does it benefit from that, because it will go from hitting on 5s natively to hitting on 4s natively, you will then also trigger its ability, which is sustained hits. Now, sustained hits aren't lethal hits, but they ain't nothing either. On top of this, you also have the fact that each bombast cannon has the blast keyword. So if you are fighting more infantry, and bear in mind, the theory is that Pariah Nexus is going to be pushing battle line a lot. We're going to be seeing more infantry. There's a lot of extra shots that could be generated from blast. And so I feel like the field ordnance battery, it's got that quantity has a quality of its own vibe. You've got the potential for huge spikes in the number of shots that you get thanks to the 46. You've got sustained hits going out here, and you've also got blast, which could really boost up the number of shots that you're getting out. The big issue with field ordnance batteries, I would say, is the fact that they're only AP -1 as standard, but it's easy to get around that, and that's why I mentioned Creed earlier. Creed's ability has been nerfed a bit, but you're going to have a lot of CP knocking around in the guard now that you're not going to be using reinforcements every 5 seconds. And so Creed will let you do fields of fire for 1 CP. Getting that extra AP will allow your fobs to go up to AP2, which means that even if your opponent's getting the benefit of cover, they're not going to feel it. However, it is important to note that the field ordnance battery does not slow enemy units down like the Basilisk. So for me, it comes down to personal preference. Do you want a unit that will be able to look after itself and also slow the enemy down a little bit? Or do you want an artillery that could potentially be throwing out a lot of dice and might do more damage in general, because all those shots are going to be damaged too, but it's less of a force multiplier and it's less of a unit that's going to mess with your opponent. If you're not sure out of these two options which one to pick, what I would do is pose the question to yourself. Are you already including Creed in your army? Are you still taking Creed and putting an infantry squad? If you are, then it actually makes sense to go down the field ordnance battery route because they're cheaper. Now, if you're not choosing to take Creed in your list, then I would go with the Basilisk. And that's because overall, that option will be cheaper. Hear me out. 2 Basilisks cost 290 points. That's it. Job done, slap them in your list. 2 field ordnance batteries cost 220 points. But if you then have to take Creed as well and you weren't planning on taking her, you're going to have 55 points for her and 60 points for the squad on top of that. So depending on what else is in your list will determine which one of these choices is right for you. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you think that you'll be running Basilisk going forward? Do you think you'll be going over to field ordnance batteries? Or is there another artillery piece which I haven't mentioned in this video? If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss a video. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bonbon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.